Cool, so next we'll have a look at the power supply that powers everything. And that's just through into our kitchen / machine room. Actually over here, this is the computer, the now defunct computer. There's a little floppy drive receptacle. That's the computer there. Huge thing. And then that's the power supply for it. And then down there is another power supply for the console. That's one of two that's required for the whole console. However, we found them to be too noisy and too inefficient, so I built one, a switch mode one, which we'll come and have a look in here. There she is there. So the switch mode power supply is very quiet. It runs super cool, so it doesn't need an aircon in here, and they're about 90% efficient when the full load of the console is running. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for us to build that. Here you can see a readout here. The readings aren't 100% correct what's at the desk, because we get a loss over the 8-meter cable that runs all the way to the console. In the other room we lose about, I don't know, a volt each. So this was the previous power supply. As you can see, a lot going on in there, a lot of linear regulators dissipating a lot of power just in heat. Yeah, so we just keep them as backups, plus those 3 fans there, really noisy. Righto, so we'll have a look at the Patchbay. So here on the mic lines, this row is directly patched into my live room, which is through here. So there's our box where all our microphones are fed in from the live room in here. And they come up on the first row of the Patchbay, which is normaled into the channel mic inputs on the console. So if we want to record on the console, they're already there, we don't have to do any patching. The next row is the multi-track return, so that's what's coming out of Pro Tools from my Apogee IO. So they're normaled, as we talked about before, they're normaled into the line inputs, but they're also normaled, as you can see another row here, into the tape monitor inputs. So that's a parallel. It's split at the Patchbay and split into the line inputs and paralleled into the tape monitor inputs. So those Pro Tools signal lines are always present on both inputs at each channel. Next we've got our channel insert sends and insert returns, and they are assignable here as you insert in, and you can make that insert pre dynamics and EQ or post, or just turn it off. The next is the group outs. So the groups are assignable up here at the routing matrix, and they will physically come out here at the group outs. At the moment I've got 20, 21, 22 onwards. They're feeding out into my outboard compression and EQ, and then coming back over here on my stereo input channels. Alright, next we've got multi-track sends. So that's what's going off of the desk into Pro Tools. So when I'm recording, I can either patch my, say, API preamp outputs up into there if I feel like using them, or if I just want to use the onboard preamps on the console, they're normaled out of the groups, and I can just select them on the matrix routing option, and they'll just spit out there straight into Pro Tools. Next line we talked about that parallel multi-track. Then here we've got a bunch of all your output distribution from the console, and some pre and post VCA, main VCA inserts. And then this is where kind of all your inserts, your echoes and cues get spit in and out. And then a lot of this other stuff is just assignable stuff that we've got our external outboard stuff patched in on. So yeah, that's how it works. It's nice and easy and just very versatile, and it's all accessible through buttons on the console, which makes it great. Alrighty, so next we're going to look at how to calibrate these channels for signals coming out of Pro Tools. The onboard signal gen on my console doesn't work at the moment, so I'm just feeding a minus 18 dB sine wave at 1K out of Pro Tools on all of my channels. So if I pull one up and I just try and get it to as close to 0 on the fader as I can, and then pan it hard to the left. And then if I look up on my VU meter here, I basically want to get the left VU meter bang on 0, just on the gain. Cool, and then I just move to the next one, same thing. And so on and so forth through the whole console. And that way, and also make sure you've got all of your compressors and EQs disengaged, because that will affect your volume, which it did on those two. And I found that minus 18 is a good level, so that you're hitting, your dynamics are still engaging, but you're not overloading the modules and the channels too early, especially when you start digging in with the EQs and pushing the bottom end. You'll start to see these overload lights light up pretty quickly, and the first thing to go is the bottom end as it starts to distort. So be mindful of that. The other thing to be mindful of as well is that you rarely push these main faders, towards the 0 mark, because once they all are in on a mix, you start to really head yourself in if the quad compressor is engaged even at the highest threshold. It might be compressing too much for you, so make sure you give yourself plenty of headroom. If you do find yourself hitting that compressor too hard and you can't adjust the threshold, you can make use of the VCA trim if all of your channel VCAs are assigned to a VCA or 0. If they're on independent, the VCA trim won't work for that. So either 0 or 1 through 8, and you can pull down the entire mix, and that is pre the compressor. So that's a good trick to have.